From the TV series Beulah to starring on Mitch Miller's show to an attention-getting role in the classic film Inherit the Wind, she has grown up before our very eyes. In the 70s, she had her own TV variety show and starred in the groundbreaking miniseries Roots. Always a lover of live performance, she has continued to enjoy success on the stage, from the award-winning production of On Golden Pond to sold-out concert tours to the title role in Hello, Dolly. Hello, I'm Ernie Manouse. Coming up on Interviews, our conversation with Tony Award-winning actress and singer, Leslie Uggams. For you, is there a difference between singing in a show, a character song, and recording a song?
Oh, yes. I mean, when you're recording a song, it's a more intimate kind of situation that you're trying to present, because you also want people to kind of be soothed by you musically. Yeah. Whereas when you're, doing a show, it's full of life and energy.
Do you prepare differently for the piece, either way?
Oh, yeah. Because, well, first of all, this is a book show, and how I sing reflects the character as well.
Does that ever bother you, singing in a character instead of coming out and being Leslie Uggams?
No, not really, because, I mean, it's going to be Leslie Uggams anyway, you know? I mean, the voice is what it is, and the difference is you're dressed up as the character, and this particular character is full of life, and so it works.
And you're currently working on your first Dolly.
Yes, I am.
I want to take you back, though. We'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
But I want to take you back to find out, when did you first realize you had this gift?
Well, my mother said that I started singing when I was like 3.
Really?
Yes, that when Frank Sinatra would come on, I would sing with him Nancy, and she said she noticed that I was singing then, and then by the time I was 5 years old, there was a dear friend of the family who felt that I had the gift, and she would take me around to these different little auditions, and there were a lot of kiddie shows at that time, and I did a lot of those things, but I come from a family. My grandfather, who was a minister, he sang, and my Aunt Eloise sang, and so music kind of ran in the family anyway.
So then is there really a time you can't remember doing it?
No, I've always sung, always sung.
Well, what about the acting then? Which came first for you then?
Actually, the acting came first. I did a show with Ethel Waters called Beulah, where I played her niece just for one episode, and I was 6. And that was my introduction into the acting world. But I started doing the Apollo when I was like 8 years old, and so my musical career kind of took off because I was playing the Apollo all the time with all these great stars. But I was still taking acting lessons from the time I was 8, off and on, yes.
Do you remember the Beulah experience?
Well, it was a lot of fun for me. I know I played, the character that I played knew a lot about baseball, and the Beulah who worked for this family, the little boy was just amazed that I knew more about baseball than he did, and that was part of the plot.
Do you remember working with Ethel Waters?
Oh, very well, and not only working with her, but she embraced my mother and I, and every time she did what she called like a soiree, a private singing performance, she would always invite my mother and I, we'd always go and see her.
Now, if I understand correctly, later on you did a show about her, correct?
I did, oh yes, a show called String Bean, about, I guess about 15 years ago, that was based on the early Ethel Waters, because most people remember her when she was heavy and playing in those kind of roles, but she was known as String Bean because she was very skinny and she could lift her leg over her head.
Wow, there's a feat.
Yeah, and she was quite the sexy kind of girl back in the day. So the production that we did kind of dealt with her first coming to New York and starting to play clubs.
When you went and you did the Apollo then, and then somewhere along the line, Mitch Miller's going to find you.
Well, Mitch Miller found me when I was doing a show called Name That Tune as a contestant, and they asked me what I like to do. And I said, I like to sing. They said, sing something. And I sang, He's Got the Whole World in His Hands. And each week you'd go for more money. And the second week, the mail came in, and then they kept asking me to sing while I'm trying to win this money so I can go to college along with my partner. And one particular night I sang the Lord's Prayer, and Mitch Miller had been hearing about this young girl, and he tuned in and heard me sing, and he had me come down and make some demo records. And he liked what he heard, and he signed me to Columbia Records.
Wow. At the time, what does it feel like when you hear Mitch Miller's interested? Because I'm assuming it's a name you knew.
Well, I mean, he was like the top A&R man at Columbia Records, so that was big time. You know, it was like, wow, recording, this would be great, you know. And we had a wonderful relationship, and still do. He's my neighbor.
Oh, really?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Is there a point that you look at and say, that was the moment it all happened? That was where it started? Is there one point, or did it just evolve for you?
Well, I've had a lot of starting points in many, many different things. I mean, the Apollo was a big thing for me because I played there for 8 years consecutively with Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald, Dinah Washington, you know, people like that, and then the rock and roll groups. So that was a great, great education. That's the best education you could possibly have. Of course, then Mitch Miller was a big thing because I became a household name. And then Hallelujah Baby, my first Broadway show. I mean, working with Comden and Green and Julie Stein and Arthur Lawrence.
Pretty good pair group to work with.
You know, and so that was another extraordinary moment in my career. And of course, Roots.
Yeah.
Roots, very much so.
Are there any of those successes that are any sweeter than any of the others, or do they all taste the same?
Well, I always look forward to the next thing, you know. I mean, I'm always curious what's around the corner. What's the next project that's going to happen to add to an extraordinary list? And in fact, I'm working on a project based on Lena Horne right now. We did a musical based on her life and in Philadelphia. It was very well received, and they're talking about it coming into the 2009 season, so we've got our fingers crossed.
Wow, good luck on
that. Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful project.
Take you back to the Apollo for a minute. When you were working with all of those stars, and you're seeing these legends in front of you, do you watch in awe, or as a performer, do you sit there and see what is it they're doing? How are they doing it? What happens here?
Well, I used to stand, there was a corner in the wings that I could always stand in, and I would stand there every single show and watch Louis, what he did, how the people were just mesmerized by him. Got to perform with him as well. He'd bring me out and sing a little song. The same thing with Ella and Dinah. So it was a great education that you couldn't pay enough money at a school to learn what they did, because it was fascinating, you know, their persona off stage, and then once they got on stage, what would happen, you know. Louis was very laid back and just a sweetheart. Ella was always very nervous before she went on. I mean,
really?
She would get physically ill a lot of times, and then she'd walk out on stage and open her mouth, and the people would go crazy. You know.
Do you get nervous?
I get not nervous, but I get butterflies from the excitement of. It's like a horse, you know. Just before they open the gate. Yeah. That's how I get.
What makes you more butterfly-y? Is it seeing something that you've done preserved, such as film or television that's going to be out there, or doing the live moment?
Well, the live moment, because you never know what's going to happen. You know? Anything can happen when you do something live, you know. And watching myself, I'm still not, you know, I always say, is that me? Do I sound like that? You know? I always think I sound so different, and then I hear something and go, wow, I thought I had a deeper voice, so, you know, like that. Yeah.
Did you have a point where you said, I definitely want to do theater, or I definitely want to do film, or I definitely want to do television, or is it just where the work took you?
Well, I've always wanted to do the acting thing, and when I was coming up, you know, it wasn't a lot of roles out there. But I'm more. I see myself more as a working actress, singer, and for some reason, when I'm thinking of something, something else always comes around that's even more interesting than what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
And it's always been like that in my career. Certainly, there's a point where you want to plan certain things, but I've never been good on the plans that I think are going to happen. It's always totally different from what I think.
Yeah. You mentioned that there weren't a lot of opportunities coming up. Did that help or hurt you, do you think, in your career? And I ask it that way because you had made a name so early on that I would think if those opportunities were out there, you would be on a very short list of, hey, we should get Leslie Uggams.
Well, yes and no. You get to a point, and I think we all do in this business, then it gets to the point where we want to get a Leslie Uggams type.
Yeah.
that always happens when you go, well, I'm here. Why do you need a type?
You can have the real thing.
You can have the real thing. But that's part of the competition in this business. But it certainly is a lot more opportunities now than it was when I was coming out. Because when I was on television, every African American would get on the phone and say, "Hey, quickly turn it on, she's on," because we didn't see a lot of us on television. And so it's come a long way from when I first started.
Do you realize you're breaking boundaries when you're doing it, or does it's just part of your day? You don't realize the impact it's having?
Oh, no, I knew because then it was a big deal. It was a big
Right.
deal, and a lot of negativity about, and I was breaking through, and people were embracing me because when I was on Sing Along with Mitch, the South did not want the show,
right.
and they refused to air the show because I was on it, and Mitch got a lot of pressure for having me on as a regular, and the sponsors and the network were talking to him about all kinds of ways about, okay, well maybe then she can sing a song that's isolated and we can cut it out, like they did many, many years before with Lena when she did movies. And he kept saying, no, it's not going to happen. Not going to happen. And he fought for me. And I didn't really know it at the time. Many years later, I learned this. So, it was a lot of stuff. And plus, I was 17 years old. All of a sudden, I was known in the black community because of the Apollo, but now all of a sudden I'm known everywhere. So it was a lot of pressure. And it's certainly different from today, where the more negative things you do, the more publicity you get, unfortunately, right. Which is not a good thing. But, so I was being scrutinized, and I represented every African American in America.
So how does a 17-year-old deal with that? How do you get through that?
Great parents.
Really?
I had a great mother and father that made sure that I kept my head together, and I had always been brought up a certain way, and that was the way that I was going to be.
Yeah. Hallelujah, Baby. When I say the name of that show to you, what's your gut reaction to it?
Extraordinary. First of all, it was a part where I was on the stage all but 3 minutes, and that 3 minutes I was changing clothes. So I mean, when I went into a Broadway show, I jumped right into this extraordinary experience. And working with Comden and Green and Julie Stein was just incredible, because they were the ones that taught me the songs. So here I am, I'm sitting next to Julie Stein, and he's playing the piano, and he's saying, this is the way it should go, and all like that. And, I look back and I go, wow, and Betty and Adolph, and it was just, and a great score. It's a great score that holds up today. People still come up to me and say, my favorite song is My Own Morning, and it still gets played, and it was a great experience. And then I had no clue about nominations or anything like that. I was just thrilled that I was doing this show, and then people were saying, oh, congratulations, you've been nominated. I'm thinking, well, what does that mean? I didn't even get it,
Yeah.
And then when I realized, it was like, wow. And then to hear your name called, it was just extraordinary.
Yeah. It fascinates me, too, when you think back, that show, and that was your first or second
First.
outing? First outing on Broadway.
First.
And to get all of that attention and
Yes.
that acclaim.
Yeah.
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 It's just amazing.
Yeah.
When then, a few years later, then Roots comes along.
Many years later, yes, yes.
Monumental success changed the way television was at the time.
Yes.
Doing it, any idea it was going to have that kind of an impact?
No.
Or are you just doing it?
None of us did, but we knew it was special. We knew it was very special because of Alex Haley. The whole set was, I can't even explain it. When you walked on the set, it had just an incredible feeling about it. Extraordinary care was taken with the right words that were being said, and it all because everybody loved Alex, and Alex would come on the set, and he was an extraordinary man, and we were thrilled, first of all, to have so many of us working together and having this wonderful story to tell, but we had no idea that it was going to make America stop. I mean, America stopped. Yep. I was in Vegas rehearsing a musical, Guys and Dolls, and by the third night, they had to reschedule shows, and people weren't gambling in the casino. They were all in their hotel rooms, ordering room service and watching Roots. And the restaurants then started putting televisions in and saying, you can watch Roots here and while you have your food, because people weren't moving. And that had never happened before, and I don't think it'll ever happen again.
No.
And it still holds up. We just had the 30th anniversary. And I was in Europe this year to get an award for it, and I hadn't realized the impact that it had even overseas. It's just amazing.
How did you come to be in the project?
Purely because I had seen Alex Haley on a show, the Dinah Shore show, when she had the afternoon show, and Richie Pryor had brought Alex Haley on to talk about his book. And he talked about the fact that ABC was going to be doing the book. And I was so fascinated with what the book was all about. I said, I would love to be a part of that. Later on, I told my manager about what I had seen, and then I forgot about it because I was on the road doing my nightclub act. When I came back from being on the road, I had an audition. And they gave me 3 scripts and said, when you come in tomorrow, tell us which one you want to read for. And when I got to the Kizzy role, I went, I know what I want to read for. And I read it, and they kind of looked at the casting agent, and the director kind of looked, and a lot of whispering, and then they had me read the other roles as well. And then they had another role, and they had sent me out and said, would you study this and then come back? And the next thing I know, they were interested in me, Kizzy, but I had to do a screen test because I had to be believable as Ben Vereen's mom. And they sent me to makeup, and I did a screen test, and the makeup was terrible. The people had no idea what to do, and I looked like a mummy. And I came home, and I was in tears, and I said, I'm not going to get this part because of this stupid makeup. They don't know what they're doing. And my manager found out who did Cicely Tyson's makeup for Jane Pittman. And it was Stan Winston. And they said, well, Stan is not really into doing that kind of makeup on. He was then getting involved in doing the Star Wars kind of things. But my manager called him up and told him about the project. He said, well, come on over. Stan couldn't have been sweeter. We went over to his house, sat and talked, and he said, well, this sounds interesting. Yeah, I'll help you out. And he created this makeup, and then they scheduled another screen test, and I got the part, and they loved the makeup so much that Stan wound up doing the rest of Roots.
So it's good for him, too.
Yeah. Oh, great for him.
Have you watched it recently?
Yes, because we recently did a new DVD of us talking about it. And it's very emotional for me. I still get just caught up with it, and I'm like, and it holds up. It holds up. And the great thing is that generation after generation will see Roots and explore this story. I have people that come up to me and go, I just got the new DVD, and I sat down with my son and watched it, and it's a dialogue piece where people sit down and talk about it. And in England, when I was over there, the African and the Caribbean who I sat and talked with, how it impacted them. A lot of them had just moved from Africa to England, and this show comes on that is talking about their story, and they were just thrilled.
Yeah. An amazing piece. Then you also did Backstairs at the White House.
Yes, which finally came out on DVD after all these years. And that was a wonderful, wonderful experience as well. And to play quite a lady. She was quite something.
Yeah. It's cool to be involved in such monumental television. And, of course, we can't forget your own show.
Yes.
You had to. True or false, it came on when the Smothers Brothers was taken off the air. You were the next show when it stopped.
I was the show that took the heat off CBS. Little did I know that I was the show to take the heat off CBS.
Right.
You know, we thought that we were going to be there for a while, but yes, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Now, in the 80s, 90s, the theater work, and you've jumped back and forth between the musical theater, which I think a lot of us think of you as, to a lot of serious dramatic roles, too.
Yes.
For you as a performer, where do you find the deeper satisfaction? Is there a difference to you?
Well, I go by the role, whether it's a musical or a straight play. But what happened was that I moved back to New York. And when I moved back to New York, all of a sudden, just walking down the street, you would run into people. And they go, oh, wait, I think that'd be a great project for you, you know, because we lived in California a long time, and everything was a meeting, and you'd have to drive everywhere and stuff like that. And what happened was that there's every 2 years that the National Black Theater Alliance, they have this extraordinary convention where people come and they do new works and things like that. And I was one of the people they were honoring with an award. And when I was down there, there was a panel and we were talking, and Woody King Jr. said to me, you know, I'd like you to do Black Girl and play the mother. Now, I had did Black Girl as a movie that R.C. Davis directed, and I was the ingenue. He said, how would you like to play the mother? And I thought, that would be interesting. We'll talk. And I wound up doing that at his theater, Federal Theater downtown. And because of that, a playwright saw me do that. And then the playwright had this project. And then I was at another function, and he was there, and he said, and I happened to have the script with me, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. And it was a play called The Old Settler. Uh-huh. And I wound up doing The Old Settler. And because of The Old Settler, the director of August Wilson's King Hedley II saw me do that, and then they had me come in and read for August. And so all of this started happening purely because of one little project.
Right.
And for years I had been trying to do straight plays and couldn't, or straight roles, you know, dramatic roles on television. And this one project, The Black Girl, just started everything rolling. So the great thing about it is I'm able now to go back and forth. And, of course, one of the highlights was doing On Golden Pond with James Earl Jones. Mm-hmm. You know, I thought, oh, gosh, I've died and gone to heaven. And, you know, and working with August Wilson and, you know, with him every day in the rehearsal process.
I have to ask about. When you walk in to do a reading for an audition for a role and August Wilson is sitting there,
yeah.
Can you keep your composure and not be like, oh, my God? You know, I would think the nerves would just destroy it.
Well, I tried to get over that while I was sitting outside before I went in there.
Yeah.
And so then I went in and, you know, read for him and had no idea. But by the time I got home, I had the part already. And I thought, oh, my gosh, I'm going to work in August Wilson's play, because I had seen, the first thing I saw of his was Ma Rainey. And I thought, who is this? Who is this extraordinary writer? And to be one of the people, you become like a family. You know, it's an honor to do one of his plays, and it was just an incredible experience, and the wonderful actors that I got to work with, and it's something that I will never forget. And he is so missed. But you know, his 10-cycle play thing just came out, and I've been very blessed. With Ruben Santiago Hudson, we did a reading, and because of the reading we did with several actors of different sections of different plays, we're now going to go down to D.C. and do some more of the reading. So, you know, once you with August, you're always with August.
When you talk about that, and you talk about being nervous to go into the room with him, I have to think there are lots of actors, young actors and actresses out there, that when they realize they're going to be in a show with you, the same fear hits into them. Are you aware of that? Do you realize when you walk into a room that they're like, that's Leslie Uggams, and we're going to be working with her? And is there anything you do to relax that in people?
Well, it's so funny because I never think of myself that way, I still think of myself as the working actress and what's the next project. And so when I hear that, I'm like, oh, really? Oh, okay. But, I love coming to work. So if you're doing something with me, then we're all in it together. Yeah. And so we're like a family. That's how I believe in it. And I believe in peace and harmony. Not a lot of tension that's going on, because you don't accomplish anything like that. I don't go in there like I'm the diva. I go in there like, wow, okay, how can we make this better by working together? And that's how I've always approached anything that I do in any production that I'm in. And we have a great time. And when you finish the project, we still are friends, and we run into each other, and that's how I work.
Well, thank you for taking time from your work to sit down and talk with us today. Such an honor.
Thank you.
Leslie Uggams.
To order a DVD of this or any episode of InnerVIEWS, please visit HoustonPBS.org.